Hello everybody and welcome to the show. Before we begin with the main event, I want to give a shout out to the friendly neighborhood CMUS, also known as CMUS.cz, and they deal mainly with the card game Magic: The Gathering and provide latest information on Czech and foreign events, forums, eShops, and they also organize competitions and tournaments. So if you are in the neighborhood or live there and need MTG related info, be sure to check them out. You can also find a link to their site in the description box below. And now, let's look at the new set, Bloomburrow for cEDH. And first I'm going to do some commander options and later talk about the cards that go into the 99. Alright, let's do this. Flubs the Fool is a legendary frog scout 0/5 for a green and a blue and a red with, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card if you have no cards in your hand. Otherwise, discard a card. So what this card does in Teamer is basically fuel your breach. You do not want to have this commander in play and play counter spells. Well, unless you play the new ones that can sacrifice your commander. But instead you can go, what interaction? And just empty your hand and go, because once your hand is empty you can have your fun. Blue Flare might actually have a good home here, by the way. For once. A not so typical Teamer commander, but a fun concept and playtest for sure. Since this set features some cute animals, let's continue this time with the rabbit, Balin, the Haymaker. It's a legendary rabbit warrior for free for a red, a green, and a white with tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any color. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card. Tap 4 untapped tokens you control, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Balin the Haymaker. It gains trample until end of turn. So the middle drawing a card is important, and this is a Naya commander that basically draws your entire deck when you do the old Cloudstone Dockside loop, or Team Sabretooth in this case. Make infinite treasures, tap them, draw your deck and wait for it. A flavor win in my opinion if you do it, and that is to win the game with Food Fight. Because you can sacrifice the treasures in Food Fight without tapping them. So again, you know, infinite mana, draw your deck basically and use the tap treasures to kill the table. Fun, right? Because also, FYI, you can tap 4 treasures to sack one of them to deal damage. It is a fun rabbit, maybe even Turbo Treasure Storm in Naya? Who knows? I'll let you guys be the judge. Okay, now we get one more 3-color legend, and this one is one of my favorite, namely Helga's Kiddish Seer. A legendary frog druid 1/3 for a green, a white, and a blue, with, whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, you draw a card, gain 1 life, and put a +1/+1 counter on Helga's Kiddish Seer. Tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is Helga's Kiddish Seer's power. Spend this mana to cast creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, or a creature spell with X in their mana cost. The second paragraph is less important, even if funny, but the main thing is, and the reason I want to build this, is you can draw your deck with Food Chain and Mist Hollow Griffin. Yay! I know some other people are considering, you know, tap and untap shenanigans potential, make infinite mana this way and kill the table with like a ballista or whatever, but Food Chain wins games. But seriously, Helga is a cool name, and winning the game in style may be hilarious. Also, I never played a banned commander on the show, so time to correct that mistake, right? A promise for 2024, and that is to play a banned commander before the year ends. I already have some fun ideas. You just wait. The infamous Cruel Claw is up next and is a free legendary weasel mercenary for 1, a black and a red with the following text. Menace. Whenever the infamous Cruel Claw deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. Now, I did read the memes online. Many people put like one spell in the deck, namely Worldfire, and the rest are lands, including, you know, lands that can deal damage to people. But what if I told you could build a real deck around this? Well, obviously the win here would be to cast Bolas' Citadel or Peer into the Abyss for free, but what if I told you that you can use Cruel Claw as a Doomsday deck? Sure, some lines are more depending, but let's go with an example for those that don't play Doomsday. So you can cast Doomsday, and then you attack with the Weasel, deal damage, cast Bolas' Citadel for free by discarding anything. The fun thing is the line does not require you to have mana once Citadel resolves, which was part of the pile you go for when you Doomsday. Then you cast Final Fortune as the second card from the top of your library. Go to your next turn, draw, I don't know, Dockside for example, who cares? Or a counter spell, or a deflecting swat, or who knows what. And the last two cards on top of your library are Molten Duplication and Dual Caster, which you can cast via Citadel. Yes, it is fragile, but fun. You all should try that and satisfy your Doomsday hearts. It's also just 7 life, so plenty of space to work with. The last commander I'm going to talk about is actually Gev, Scaled Scourge, a legendary lizard mercenary 3/2 for a black and red with Ward, pay to life. Other creatures you control enter with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each opponent who lost life this turn. Whenever you cast a lizard spell, Gev, Scaled Scourge deals 1 damage to target opponent. So the second line of text is a little less important, even if there is another Cloudstone line I can talk about. We will get to that one sooner or later. But it's the first one we care about, the +1/+1 counter, because with a sack outlet, let's say a Phyrexian Altar, and Murderous Redcap, you can kill the table. Also, this lizard is a mercenary, I don't know why, but you can update your Outlaw decks with this, I guess. Now we transition into the 99, so let's stay on topic with black-red decks with Iridescent Vine Lasher, which is a 1/2 for 1 black mana lizard assassin with a new mechanic called Offspring. Kicker, but you know, Offspring. But basically for paying 2 generic, in this case, extra, you get a copy of this creature that is a 1/1, but only if it resolves and hits the field after you cast it. And it's not a cast trigger, so yeah, as I said, kicker. Also it has Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to target opponent. So this is your new best strength for Crouch Nixilis because of the pinging via lands, which is awesome and easy. Because, you know, for 1 mana you get 1 trigger, and if you invest 3 mana you get 2 pings for 2 separate people with the line drop. And then you play, you know, fetch lands and stuff. Also, it's a lizard, which means with Dockside and Cloudstone Courier, this can kill the table with Gev, the one I talked about earlier. 1 card for 2 decks and more? Awesome, right? Now I want to take a moment to talk for a second about 2 cards in one leg, cause finally, my dear friends and fans that play Magda, you can rejoice. Why? Because you're getting 2 new artifacts dwarfs in Bark Form Harvester and Free Tree Mascot. Bark Form, for free generic, has reach and is a 2/3, and for 2 mana you can put target card from your graveyard on the bottom, so infinite mana, infinite treasures, you can loop damage dealing artifacts. And the mascot for 2 generic filters mana. That doesn't really matter, but you know, it's an artifact, squirrel and bird that look like dwarves, if you squint hard enough. And that help Magda do her clock loops. Rejoice. Rejoice. Rejoice! Moving on, let's look at Free Tree City, a legendary land with, as Free Tree City enters, choose a creature type. It taps for a colorless or 2 generic and tap it, choose a color. Add an amount of mana of that color equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type. Not sure how this really stacks up since it's like a cross between Cradle and Nykthos in a small way, but I'm sure there are creature heavy typo decks like elves, I guess, with untapped shenanigans, and they will love this land, I think. We'll see. I think it's a fine addition for the right deck, but I will leave this one up to you, so let me know in the comments how you feel. Osteomancer Adept, I hope I did not butcher that, is a 2/2 Squirrel Warlock for 1 in the black with Death Touch and tap. Until end of turn you may cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging in addition to paying their other costs. If you cast a spell this way, that creature ends with a finality counter on it. So first, it features the new forage mechanic, which is basically as an additional cost sacrifice a food or exile 3 cards, kinda like Breach. The finality counter means it would be exiled if it would die, however if you return it to your hand, it's fine. Now I am unsure how potent this is, but basically it's like a mini Breach for creatures. Sure, it needs to tap, but the creatures do not need to be in your yard to activate, unlike other cards that came before it in Standard. I'm sure some creature decks are quite interesting in this, especially in decks that play, like, for example, Hermit Druid and say Tyvar, but don't have access to Breach, so maybe Sultai. Or as a second Breach to recast that Dockside or whatever. It's an interesting little squirrel, for sure. And here's the moment many of you have been waiting for. And that is to see an otter, so let's go there with Valley Floodcaller, a 2/2 otter wizard for 2 in the blue with Flash. You may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control get +1/+1 until end of turn and untap them. Again, more untap shenanigans in the final line, but that is the least important thing. This is another variant on, Shimmer Mirror and Liberator, but allows you to cast non-creature spells. It's almost as great as Spawn Upon the Wind these days. With it being a creature is maybe sometimes a little harder to counter. Sometimes, not always, but we take what we can. But there's a chance, and it's also a wizard, so in Allah and Wizard Cycling are giving this card an even closer look. Bloomburrow, as you all know, this features many creatures from otters to frogs to badgers and so on and so on. But now let's look at a bat. Darkstar Augur is a bat warlock, 2/3 for 2 and a black with the new offspring mechanic I mentioned earlier. So for a black this time you get a baby copy, and it has flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Your lowest life equal to its mana value. So yes, this is a Bob, or Dark Confidant that flies. It can be a damaging threat on the board. Also for 4 mana you get 2 of them in case you want to kill one later, so Diabolic Intent or whatever. So if you're playing a deck where you had Bob, well now you can have an improved Bob if you want. Also the art is 6, so why not? How about we look upon a non-creature spell now? Into the Flood Maw is an instant for 1 blue mana with the new gift mechanic. Similar to how Offspring works, if you promise a gift, in this case a token of a 1/1 tap blue fish, they only get it once the spell starts resolving. I usually don't like to give my opponents anything, but in this case I think it's worth it because Into the Flood Maw states, return to a creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If the gift was promised, instead return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. Sure, you can bounce your own stuff, but for 1 blue mana you either bounce a stacks creature or a stacks piece of anything that is stopping you from winning, and gifting them a tapped fish token is negligent in this one. Sure, there are other gift variant cards here, but this one I believe will do the thing you need it to. Also, it can be swatted onto your own thing because it has to be something your opponents control. Upsides, right? By the way, you still with me? Let me know if you made it to this part of the video by typing "Let It Rain" in the comments below. Speaking of rain, Dour Port Mage is the next card we are going to look at, and that is a 1/3 frog wizard. Here we go again. For 1 in the blue with, whenever 1 or more creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. It also has 1 in the blue and tab, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. Remember the Dockside loops you mentioned earlier with you bouncing into your hand? Well, now you can draw cards with that. This card is actually nuts. Sure, you can bounce something once, but regardless of that, I think this card and the card we are going to talk about after this can be real powerful card draw engines, while just doing what you want to do and benefiting even more from it. This is the nuts part. Maybe it's even more nuts than the final card I'm going to show you, because that's Polywalk Prodigy, which is also a 1/3 frog wizard for 1 in the blue, but this one has Evolve. Basically it gets a +1/+0 counter for when a creature with a bigger power or toughness enters the battlefield under your control. But the real thing, whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Polywalk Prodigy's power, draw a card. So early game, you draw cards for all the rocks and 0 mana spells people cast. On the next turn you cast creature like, I don't know, Timna or Talion, evolve this, and then you just draw cards for more and more. Both of these frogs are insane. It will be part of fun and interesting engines, I'm sure. Also in the late game they can just be pitched to forces or whatever. But beware, with great power comes great responsibility, because the frogs are force draws. Remember that, it's not a May. And with that, we reached the end of my Bloomburrow review for cEDH. Hope you had a fun time and enjoyed your time with me. Remember to use the comment section below to share your thoughts on the cards I mentioned here, and if I missed any cards. And don't forget to check out CMUS.cz for your Czech NTG news. And with that, I will see you all behind the veil.